Happy New Year and welcome back. We are starting a brand new year with a brand new unit. This is Mrs. Vance, and we're now starting on Unit 9, which is about chromosomes and meiosis. The information in this unit is covered in Chapter 8 of your book. There will be some reading assignments along the way, so please try to read a couple of pages here and there to help you with your learning about chromosomes and meiosis. So the first part of notes is about chromosomes. You may think you already know a lot about chromosomes, and you do know some things about chromosomes, but we're going to talk more about the chromosome structure and the reason why we need to have a special kind of cell division. One thing I want you to think about is that you already know this, that you have 46 chromosomes in your cells, and you get half of your chromosomes from your dad and half from your mom. But the question is, how do you go about producing cells that have only half the number of chromosomes? And so that's what one of the main foci of this particular unit is about, how we go about reducing that chromosome number to make our gametes to produce our offspring. So chromosomes, like I said, you have 46 chromosomes. You actually have 23 pairs of chromosomes. The chromosomes are what we call homologous chromosomes. Homo means the same, as it has in many other words that we've used throughout the year. And the logos part means location. And so these are basically chromosomes have genes for the same traits in the same locations. The homologous chromosomes do. One member of each of your pairs of chromosomes comes from each parent. You have 22 pairs that are called autosomes. They're numbered and lined up. If you look at a picture of them, they're lined up in size from largest to smallest. And they're numbered 1 through 22. The 23rd pair are called the sex chromosomes. And there are two different kinds of sex chromosomes. The X chromosome is found, everybody has at least one X chromosome. Females have 2 X chromosomes. Males have 1 X and 1 Y. And we'll talk about how that works and how that affects inheritance of traits and things like that as we go on talking in this unit and going on into genetics. The homologous chromosomes, like I said, are matched in length. They're the same length as each other. They have their centromeres are in the same locations. Remember, the centromere is where the chromatids attach together when the chromosomes are duplicated, and in the locations of the genes. We call the position of a gene on a chromosome a locus, one locus, 2 or more loci. Remember that even if the genes for the traits are in the same order, you might have different versions of the gene on your maternal and paternal chromosomes, because you might have a brown eye gene from your mom and a blue eye gene from your dad, but there's still a gene for eye color located in that position. So that's what we mean by the location. So here we have a diagram showing a pair of homologous chromosomes. These are duplicated chromosomes. So these are taken before cell division occurs. The banding pattern that you see is a result of the differential staining process that occurs as they prepare the chromosomes to be viewed under the microscope. The colors on here, there are different kinds of staining processes. Some have different colors, some have black and white kind of, or gray, shades of gray. But the bands don't represent individual genes, they represent just sections of the chromosome. There are actually multiple genes within most of those colored bands. Notice that we're indicating the two sister chromatids, and remember, as long as they're attached together at the centromere, we call it one chromosome, a duplicated chromosome, and only when they separate at the centromere do they become individual chromosomes. Little video here that's really good, does a nice job of explaining what a chromosome is, how it's constructed, and I think it's worth our while to watch this.
Stated Clearly presents, what is a chromosome? In previous animations, we learned that DNA is a spiraling chain-like molecule made up of 4 different types of nucleotides. Scientists have labeled them A, C, T, and G. We also learned that a gene is a long stretch of DNA, a specific sequence of A's, C's, T's, and G's that code for something. What does a gene code for? Usually a protein or a group of proteins, though there are a few exceptions. In multicelled creatures like ourselves, proteins, which are coded for by genes, interact with other proteins and molecules to make up living cells. Cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, and organs ultimately make up entire living creatures. Individuals have different traits, in this case differences in beak shape, largely because of differences or mutations in their genetic code. These differences can either cause changes in a specific protein shape, and therefore its function, or mutations can change when or how much of a particular protein will be produced. Now that you clearly understand these three terms, and by the way, feel free to pause the video to study them if need be, it is now time to talk about chromosomes. A chromosome is an entire chain of DNA along with a group of stabilizing proteins. You may have seen images showing DNA trapped inside a chromosome, sort of like this. This is not how chromosomes hold their DNA. If you were to unravel a chromosome, you would see that it's made of a thread, sort of like a spool of yarn. Zoom in again and you'll see that fiber is a collection of protein orbs called histones, which are wrapped with a string-like structure. Zoom in on that string and you'll find that this is the chain of DNA. It is extremely long, millions of nucleotides long, and often contains hundreds of genes along its length. In this image, we're looking at a chromosome in its condensed, yarn-like form, but chromosomes are only packaged tightly like this when a cell is reproducing. This structure helps with durability as the cell is splitting in two. For most of a cell's life, however, chromosomes exist in a loose, noodle-like structure along with other chromosomes safe inside the nucleus or centerpiece of a cell. Here is a photograph of an entire set of human chromosomes taken from a cell right as it was getting ready to reproduce. Your genome, the entire collection of genes that help make you who you are written across 23 pairs of chromosomes, that's 46 altogether. With very few exceptions, each cell in your body contains its own full copy of your chromosomes, your entire genetic code. Eyeball cells only use the eyeball cell genes, the rest are turned off. Liver cells only use liver cell genes, the rest are turned off, and so on for each cell type. One member of each pair of your chromosomes came from your mother, the other came from your father. If you were to examine the two individuals of a pair, you'd find that for the most part, both contain the exact same genes in the exact same locations. If you were to zoom into the actual genetic code, however, you would find slight sequence variations between them. These are the results of mutations. Most of these mutations happened long ago and have been passed down from parent to child for many generations. Others, however, are completely unique to you. These mutations occurred either in the sperm or egg, which fused to make you, or they occurred early on in your development, making it into all or many of your cells as you matured. These unique mutations represent brand new genetic information, sequences of DNA that may have never been seen before in the history of the cosmos. So, to sum things up, what exactly is a chromosome? A chromosome is an entire chain of DNA along with a group of stabilizing proteins. Humans typically have 23 pairs of chromosomes in each of their cells. That's 46 altogether. In your body, one member of each pair came from your father, the other from your mother. For most of a cell's life, chromosomes exist in a loose, noodle-like structure. Chromosomes are copied and then condensed like spools of yarn for durability when a cell prepares to reproduce by splitting in two. I'm John Perry, and that is a chromosome, stated clearly.
All right. So, the next part we need to talk about is about life cycles. And organisms have life cycles. And basically, by definition, a life cycle is the series of stages leading from the adults of one generation to the adults of the next generation. Humans, like a lot of other animals and plants and lots of other organisms as well, are what we call diploid. Their body cells have two sets of chromosomes, one set from each parent, okay? And like it said in the video, with very few exceptions, all of the cells in your body have the diploid number of chromosomes. In the case of humans, that's 46, okay? In order to produce gametes or sex cells that have fewer chromosomes, half the number of chromosomes, to maintain our chromosome number as a species, we have to have a special type of cell division called meiosis. This is the process that changes your diploid nuclei to haploid nuclei. Diploid means they have two sets of chromosomes. The di means two. Haploid cells have only one set of chromosomes. Meiosis is a special type of cell division that only occurs in the sex organs, producing the sperm and egg cells that are the gametes. Gamete is a term that refers to the sex cells in general, sperm and egg cells. Okay, we use it just as a generic term. When the sperm and egg get together, that's the process of fertilization. And the product of fertilization is called a zygote. The zygote is the single cell that has a diploid chromosome number with one set of chromosomes from each parent. And that's the cell that will go through multiple rounds of mitosis to eventually produce a new individual. Here we have a representative of how the life cycle looks. You'll see the similar life cycle when we talk about other kinds of organisms as well. The blue lines and arrows refer to the diploid phase of the life cycle, and in the tan is the haploid stage of the life cycle. In humans, the only haploid stage we have is the sperm cell and egg cell. It's different in different kinds of organisms, and we'll talk about that again as we talk about other kinds of organisms. But this is the cycle that we go through. The haploid sperm and egg cell join together, unite together in fertilization to produce the diploid zygote, which undergoes many rounds of mitosis to produce a new individual. All sexual life cycles are going to have some kind of alternation between a diploid stage and a haploid stage. In some organisms, the diploid stage is the major part of the life cycle, like it is with us. In other organisms, the haploid stage may be more prominent than the diploid stage. It just depends on the organism. And again, we'll talk about that as we talk about other kinds of organisms. But the big reason for producing these haploid gametes is that keeps the chromosome number from doubling every generation. It would get very complicated pretty quickly if we didn't cut that number down. So maintaining a specific chromosome number for a species is really, really important. Here's the basics of how meiosis goes. We'll learn the details in the next few days, but the basics are we have a pair of homologous chromosomes in the diploid parent cell that undergoes replication in the S phase of the cell cycle, just like in mitosis. The big difference is here in this part, okay? In mitosis, we have one set of divisions that separates each of the sister chromatids from each other. In meiosis, though, we have two sets of divisions. The first division just separates the homologous chromosomes from each other. Notice that the chromatids are still attached together, and so those are duplicated chromosomes, but these cells right here are haploid. They have only half the number of chromosomes. And then there's another set of divisions where another set of stages that divide those sister chromatids from each other into separate chromosomes. And so now instead of two daughter cells that are just like the parent cell, we now have 4 daughter cells, each of which has half the number of chromosomes that the original parent cell had. This is the type of cell division that produces those gametes in diploid organisms. And then again, one more time, just to reiterate, 2 of those haploid gametes are going to combine together to restore the diploid number in the zygote. The 2 types of division are very, very similar, and we'll look at a comparison of the 2 different types as we talk more about meiosis. Okay, they both are preceded by the same G1, S, and G2 phase of the cell cycle. The part that's different is the M phase. Okay, in mitosis, we have only one cell division that produces 2 identical daughter cells that are identical to the parent cell. Meiosis, however, is followed by 2 sets of divisions after that one duplication that produces 4 daughter cells, each of which has the haploid set of chromosomes. And that concludes the notes for part 1. Stay tuned for further information.